The family of a wood carver shot to death by a Seattle police officer.
Shot and killed
Autopsy
by a
shows
Seattle police
he was
officer.
not facing
that
the
knife
officer.
was found
He
closed.
suffered 4 gunshot
Seattle police
wounds.
faced a number of
Had his carving knife
folded
folded
Filed by the Williams family attorney, who says Williams was not a threat.
Who shot and killed a Native American wood carver is concerned he won't get a fair inquest.
A preliminary police investigation determined the shooting was not justified, and Officer Brooks' gun and badge were taken away from him.
Every day we wake up for you to protect and serve, but if you can't do that, tell me what's your job worth. Now you got a bad rep and the city really hates you, not to mention everything you've done makes you disgraceful. Tell me, how do y'all sleep at night? You beat and shoot people, then go home to your wife? Can you answer why there's kids laying up in the hospital, bodies in the morgue? To me, it's not logical. Protect, to defend something you care about. Serve, to be there when there's people without. You don't protect or serve, you extort and harass. You took the job for the power, the gun and the badge. Accept when you're wrong and take the punishment. You swore on an oath, you're supposed to live under it. I'm fighting my case, so I'll speak for the people. High Police Department, it's crew, nice to meet you. We need to stand up, cause they're out of control. With police like this, we have to revolt. We cannot sit down, we cannot let go. We cannot pretend we haven't seen what they've shown. We need to stand up, cause they're out of control. With police like this, we have to revolt. We cannot sit down, we cannot let go. We cannot pretend we haven't seen what they've shown. Excessive force turned deadly, now you just shoot. When they're cuffed on the ground, it's batons and boots. I had my own little taste of a yellow mace cane. I got dragged and slammed inside a metal door jam. Forget about me, what about T. Williams, the short old man when they shot and killed him? He didn't do a single thing, he was walking away, gunned down by a cop in the middle of the day. Witnesses say there wasn't one good reason. 4 kill shots left him on the ground bleeding. Tell me right now how it's justified. You could have shot him in the legs and he would have survived. Or better yet, use your taser, that's what it's there for. Instead you put a harmless man inside of a morgue. Now his family has to grieve and you're fighting the case. There's cops like this everywhere, so how are we safe? We need to stand up, cause they're out of control. With police like this, we have to revolt. We cannot sit down, we cannot let go. We cannot pretend we haven't seen what they've shown. We need to stand up, cause they're out of control. With police like this, we have to revolt. We cannot sit down, we cannot let go. We cannot pretend we haven't seen what they've shown. Every tax dollar earned puts your kids through college, but you walk the streets treating people like garbage. We hear it all the time, yet nothing is done. Tell me why the city only takes the badge and the gun. He was partially deaf and you shot him in the back. Your lawyer can say what he wants, we know the facts. 4 seconds went by before you pulled and clapped. No warning was given and the witness proves that. From Seattle to Frisco, LA to NY, enough is enough, people don't need to die. Do you want another riot, Rodney King type style? I'd lock him for life, I was part of that trial. I refuse to let this one just slide by, so I decided to let everyone know why. We need to stand up and it needs to be now, cause if we don't, someone we know might get shot down. We need to stand up cause they're out of control. With police like this, we have to revolt. We cannot sit down, we cannot let go. We cannot pretend we haven't seen what they've shown. We need to stand up cause they're out of control. With police like this, we have to revolt. We cannot sit down, we cannot let go. We cannot pretend we haven't seen what they've shown. You need to listen to what I'm saying, who I'm saying it to, and why. They call me crew.
Welcome to Keepin and Hunnid. Tonight we have Sharaud Norman on again, and we also have Becky Archy, who was a friend of Phillip White's. To give a little bit of background for people who didn't listen to last week's show or don't know the situation, haven't seen it on the news because it really hasn't been out there that much. Phillip White was 32 years old, an African-American male. There was a call to his street about a disturbance. Basically, he was just yelling. There had to have been something that was going on at that time. When the police came, there's no video as of yet that we've obtained about before the struggle, but he was punched in the head and beaten up by Officer Platania, and Officer Platania also had his canine Agger maul him while he was unresponsive and unconscious on the ground. Later, he had passed away. So we talked about this last week with Walter Hudson and Mr. Norman. We were all on together. We talked about this last week, so we're going to pick up on it again. And because there are some new things that are going on and some things that we didn't necessarily get to cover in a 2-hour period. There's no way you can sum up somebody's life or tragedy like this in 120, minutes. So, Becky, go ahead and we'll start with you. Why don't you give us a background of you and Philip's relationship and, how you, other than being a friend of his, how you became involved in all of this, the Justice for Philip movement?
I went to school with his brother. Me and his brother were close. That's how I actually met Philip. Also, Philip did also hang out with my brother. We did run the streets together. I'm not gonna lie. We caused our problems. We were juveniles. That happens. I did have a 2-year relationship with him also. He was a good guy. I mean, he had a past just like anybody else does, but for what happened to him is unjust and uncalled for. Like, to me, it's absurd that someone would even be treated that way, and to have an animal just maul him the way that it happened. Like, clearly anybody that watched the video could clearly see that he was unresponsive. That's common sense. Like, I'm hurt. Like, I'm not doing this just for him. I'm doing this for anybody who has suffered from a situation like this, because it's not right. And a lot of the cops hide behind a badge. And I'm not saying all cops are bad, because not all of them are. There are good cops out there, but a lot of them hide behind whatever they want. And it's not right. They shouldn't be cops.
Well, absolutely. And I think you're absolutely right. There are, excuse me, there are good cops. Well, what the problem we're seeing is those good cops are not the ones showing up at the scene or, to the call. So we end up with these cops that use excessive force that, which, by the way, Officer Louis Platania, he has a complaint against him for using a dog when a suspect was handcuffed and on the ground already. In the news reports, they're saying that the dog was used to subdue Philip, but that you can see that the dog didn't come out until he was already on the ground, already being pummeled, already non-responsive. He wasn't fending off any type of blows. He wasn't trying to protect himself or shield himself with his arms. He was basically limp. And so I personally believe that he was in the process of dying at that moment in time. And to have the dog come out and do that when the officer, they clearly knew that he was in respiratory distress, because before the altercation took place, they had called for an ambulance. So they knew. And to have that happen and have somebody actually sit on your chest, roughly about 190 pounds, sit on your chest while you're laying on your stomach and bash you in the head. I can't imagine that would be something that somebody could survive under a respiratory distress situation. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's fatal in itself.
Right. Yeah. And Sharaud, go ahead and talk about what we did the other day, where you were saying positional asphyxiation, just in case people don't know about that. I know you were more well versed in it than me.
Yeah. First of all, it's good to be on with you two guys today. But yeah, for positional asphyxiation, that's definitely a topic that's, something that police officers know about. It's something that they're trained on. It's something that they understand, because they've had incidents where it pretty much boils down to they've smothered an individual to the point where that person can't breathe, and they stop breathing, and therefore they perish. But and looking at Phillip White's situation, it reminds me of that, because if a man is in medical distress and it's possibly respiratory related, not to say that they're medical professionals, but they knew that something was wrong.
That's why they called the ambulance.
Exactly, that's why they called the ambulance. So they knew something was wrong, and to mount an individual that's unresponsive, unresistant, and and to rain down that many blows on an individual towards their head and actual possibly the spinal region to the neck region, which is a sensitive area. So, and then to have the dog come on top of it and to tell the dog to attack someone that's not even moving. So I definitely, from last week, I definitely agree. It's vicious. It's uncalled for. It's beyond police misconduct. If there was terminology beyond excessive force, it would be that. So, positional asphyxiation is something that's definitely real, but that's, I think we all know that's only just a part of the bigger picture, though.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And the way that the media, Becky, let me ask you, how do you feel about the way that the media is handling it? Not necessarily reporting on it, because, there are local stations that are really reporting it well. And I think in a good light to Phillip, they're not pushing so much on the mistakes he's made other than, the video and what's clear cut at that time. But when you have the police come out and they're saying, oh, well, we can guarantee you he's on PCP and cocaine, before a toxicology report came out, they said, we believe it will show. And to lie and say the dog is the one who subdued him, you can obviously see 27 seconds into the third video that as the cop has the dog over top of Phillip, he goes for his radio and says, he's grabbing for my gun. And you can see that's not what's happening. So that was almost like a staged event. How do you feel about that? I mean, this is somebody that you knew, that you were involved with on a lot of different levels, and you probably knew him better than a lot of people do. And how do you feel about those types of things being said in the media, trying to thwart justice from happening in this case?
I feel it's absurd. Regardless of somebody's past, like I said, everybody has a past. Everybody grows. Everybody grows from their past. I have a past. I have a criminal past. As a juvenile, as an adult, I've been to the county jail 6 times. I'm not going to sit here and lie. It was completely unjust. I don't think they called an ambulance soon enough. What they did to him, and the complete fact that he was under respiratory distress, that fact right there should have been the main priority, not an officer of that size sitting on his chest under respiratory distress, pounding on him. It's absurd. And then to just try to cover it up saying, oh, well, he was on PCP or whatever drug. No, he didn't do those kind of drugs. I know he smoked weed. I know that for a fact.
But here's the point, is that even if he did, he would not have gotten the death penalty.
Exactly.
That would not have been his punishment. Even grabbing for a gun, if what, roundhouse kick, whatever, what they're saying is true, he still wouldn't have gotten the death penalty under the law.
I also think that it's important to note, me and Becky are from that area, and just like Becky says, if you're from that area of Vineland, then you know a little bit about the streets, and we do. So I'll just say this: there's, in all of my years of living in Vineland, which I currently don't now, but in all my years of living there has not ever been one person I've ever even heard of that sold PCP. So for the way that they handle those reports, as PCP, and I believe the other one was cocaine, the way that they handled those reports, I think, was dishonest and misleading, because I think if you really do your research, you'll find out that those same, ingredients and narcotics are included in singular substances such as ecstasy. So if it was something like an ecstasy pill, then that creates a different picture other than, someone that's ingested PCP and cocaine.
Right, and they're saying superhuman strength, but the problem is I don't see any superhuman strength. It looks like Superman with kryptonite. There. Superman and kryptonite. I mean, there was no superhuman strength there, and you know, it's funny, as I was doing some research on this whole PCP claim, and they had said the same thing about Rodney King, that they had beat him because they felt as though he was under PCP and he had this superhuman strength and so on and so forth. And look what happened there. I mean, he ended up testing negative for all of those drugs.
Yeah, all that is an excuse to try to cover up what the officers did.
Well, absolutely. Like I was saying at the last, I don't know if I said it on the last show or if I had just spoken to somebody individually about it, but in St. Louis, there's actually a seminar that they give to police officers on how to win your officer-involved death by shooting case by using the media. And you can see it over and over and over again that you're hearing a repetition of the scripts. He was grabbing for my gun. He was on PCP. I've heard that a couple times lately, not just with Phillip White's case, but there was another one where they said that. And I don't believe that PCP is starting to have this huge outbreak or comeback to where everybody's using it now. I don't believe that. But, you know, he's grabbing for my gun. He's grabbing for my taser. I felt in fear for my life. We have to start changing the standard. I mean, what's the standard on fear?
Yeah, I actually agree with you 100% on that. Just to be honest, I wanted to chime in on that. As you saw earlier, I actually sent you a link to the video that I just did for Phillip White. That's what I actually lined out in the video is certain, you know, aspects of that. One, I think it's important for people to admit one thing about this situation, and I see this time and time again. Every time you see an officer-related, death of someone that's in the community, you'll notice that these people they'll cover it up. They'll use the same story. They'll use the same tactics over and over and over again. Now, what I'm trying to figure out is when we as a people are going to really come together and decide and say, hey, look, we see your story. We see your script. Now we want to take the power and control and help to write the new script for what the new policing of America should be. Because, I mean, I don't know if you guys are with me on this, but I'm all for changing some of the laws that these people get a chance to get away with. They misuse their power in so many situations. I think that we're at a breaking point now where we can demand that certain things change. And if they don't change, I don't understand how we can move forward as a country, not trusting our police officers, not trusting the police force, and only knowing that the death toll is going to escalate. It's not going to go away. If we don't address it, it's going to get worse.
I wanted to, last time I had talked about the Peelian principles, and I wanted to just real quick, there's 9 of them, and they're not that long, but I wanted to real quick go over this, and crime prevention and law enforcement. So principle 1 is the basic mission for which the police to exist is to prevent crime and disorder. That's what their mission is. The ability for the police to perform their duties is depending on public approval of police actions. That's number 2. 3 is police must secure the willing cooperation of the public in voluntary observance of the law to be able to secure and maintain the respect of the public. 4, the degree of cooperation of the public that can be secured diminishes proportionately to the necessity in the use of physical force. 5, police seek and preserve public favor not by catering to public opinion, but by constantly demonstrating absolute impartial service to the law. 6, police use physical force to the extent necessary to secure observance of the law or to restore order only when the exercise of persuasion, advice, and warning is found to be insufficient. 7, key point. 7, police at all times should maintain a relationship with the public that gives reality to the historical tradition that the police are the public and the public are the police. The police being only members of the public who are paid to give full-time attention to duties which are incumbent on every citizen in the interest of community and welfare and existence. The last 2 are very, very quick. 8 is police should always direct their attention strictly towards their functions, and never appear to usurp the powers of the judiciary. And 9, the test of police efficiency is the absence of crime and disorder, not the visible evidence of police action in dealing with it. We have come very, very far away from those principles, which have been centered around public authority.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt you. Where can I get a copy of that? What is that again?
It's the Peeland Principles. I'll go ahead and send it to you. But New York City claims to be be an example on that. And I don't see New York City at all. I mean, they're a whole nother breed. I was there protesting for the Occupy Wall Street birthday party, and they were thugs. I mean, you talk about terrorists.
Yeah.
They were just maniacs, pulling people out of crowds, bum rushing crowds. It was just nuts. And I took my 12-year-old daughter there for her birthday and mine because we both like to protest. And I'm telling you, I was so scared for her because the way they were bum rushing the crowds and people running away, she almost got trampled a few times. So I won't take her there again for a while, not for that kind of protest. There was 5,000 people there, though, a lot of people. So if we look at those principles, it's really surrounded around the public's approval of how the police handle the situation. And I'm not approving of this. Obviously, you and Becky aren't approving of this. So what do we do to get them back to that?
Well, I'll let Becky go first if she'd like.
Yeah, my opinion is going to be hard, but my first example for my opinion is for us we got to stand together as one. I mean, you got street people that there are street people that are all about gun violence and all that. That's not helping the system at all. That's why a lot of the cops are the way they are today. So that's another big problem. But for people who strongly believe in situations like this that is wrong, we need to come together, united, stand together, and keep pushing and, protest and send letters, get petitions. Don't stop. Just keep it going and keep it going and keep it going. Our voices need to be heard.
Absolutely. Like, we can't let it go. I think too many times people just assume that this is what the police are allowed to do. Like in Kelly Thomas, 2 officers were definitely charged and they were taken to trial, and a jury decided it wasn't even excessive force, but they beat the man in the head with a billy club like 30 times and just pulverized him, and he ended up dying. And they got found not guilty even for excessive force. So it's when is the public going to start to realize that they don't have the authority to do this? Their mission or their role is to investigate crimes, apprehend suspects. That's it.
Well, I think also, kind of to answer that question too a little bit is, it's more than 2 things, but I have a couple things here. We probably have to re-educate the public on what their rights are and what the proper procedures are when you're dealing with law enforcement. So many people and so many times you see don't know what to do, and it's kind of like a shocker thing. I know me and you have touched on this before, Diedre, on the fact it's the psychology of being attacked. And, if you don't believe you're in the wrong for something and you're dealing with law enforcement, well, you may not react the way that they think that you should act. And therefore, you're subject to, getting hurt in today's, police world that we're living in. So we definitely need to check out, re-educating the public on their rights and proper procedures when dealing with law enforcement, what they can and cannot do. And, as well as, the extent of, how law enforcement can deal with you. The second thing is body cameras. It's a hot topic right now and everywhere. They're, talking about body cameras. I think that the police departments need to stop lying about the cost of body cameras. I mean, we've had cell phone cameras around for a really long time now. Cameras are not expensive. GoPro cameras aren't even expensive anymore. So, for us to really equip every police officer with a camera system should be as standard as the gun and the badge that he owns.
Well, there are people that are actually donating them to police departments all the time.
Yeah. So I mean, if we get body cameras across the board, that'll provide a lot of accountability. And this excuse with the body cameras, I'm going to touch on this too, that the body camera or the dash cam camera, the audio wasn't on, the video wasn't on. These are all things that can be avoided by just writing things into the coding of how it works, where the officer is not responsible for turning it on, where there's a signal that goes off that every time he steps out of that car to, go to another vehicle to do his job, that camera automatically turns on.
Absolutely. Real quick, I'm going to go ahead and add John Anthony Fairhurst. He is an anonymous member. He was not directly involved in the anonymous leaks. That was Lol Saints. But he is a huge activist. He organizes the Million Mass March. He also, and it's in D.C. November 5th for anybody that wants to go. It's always like a really great day. I have a bunch of people getting together and fighting for justice and against injustice. He also was in Ferguson for a couple of months protesting out there. And did a couple of actions, anonymous, shut shit down, and a couple of other things. Let me go ahead and work on getting him on here right now. Hey, John, how are you doing today? This is Diedre, Keepin in a Hunnid.
What's going on?
Oh, nothing. We're just all hanging out. I want you to meet Becky and Sharaud Norman. They both knew Phillip White, the Phillip White case that I've been posting on the page.
Yeah.
Why don't you go ahead and take a moment and tell us about you and, how you got started in the activism such as you had against police brutality, such as Michael Brown and some other cases you've been, protesting in.
Basically, my name is John Anthony Fairhurst. Started the Million Mass March in 2013. Since then, I've participated in a few other marches. Then we had the march again in D.C. in 2014, and then from there, I went home for a little bit, and then went to Ferguson. I got to Ferguson the night that the night of the riots, basically, when they announced that they were not going to indict Darren Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
I spent almost 2 months there, and in those 2 months, we went from Ferguson to Chicago for the Day of Anger March. Where there was a lot of involvement with the police killings there, and then we went to Cleveland, Ohio, for a memorial for Tamir Rice, and then from there, I can't remember if it was the day of or the day after we got back to Ferguson when Antonio Martin was killed at the gas station in Berkeley, which is the next town over from Ferguson.
Right, and, exactly. I remember that.
Yeah. So it's been an ongoing battle, basically.
And it seems like no matter how hard you fight or, even the online, collective doing online activities, no matter how hard, it always seems like there's more. I think the statistics are Phillip White in March was the 290th person killed in the first 90 days of the year and the 111th in March, but there ended up being 115. So he was the first of like 4 people to be killed that day. So it's like one every 8 hours. And I think now we're up to 315 killed by police.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. And one thing I like to point out to a lot of people, like just being involved like with Ferguson, with all the protests that we had down there. Like we're down there. We just for one example, like there was a silent march from Union Station all the way to the Arches in St. Louis, and what we did is we had duct tape and we wrote a name of a victim from the police on the duct tape, and there was a silent march all the way to the Arches, and then we taped the names like to the Arch in St. Louis, and like me, like I wrote, like, you know, like I wrote Kelly Thomas's name like on the tape, and as bad as it is from all races, like people in Ferguson, half the people down there didn't even know who Kelly Thomas was, you know, and then it's like, and
or
then
Dylan Taylor,
another
for that
thing that I
matter.
brought up. What's that?
Or Dylan Taylor, for that matter. A lot of people don't know about his story either in Utah.
Yeah, and there's a couple of others. I can't think of the names off the top of my head, but you know what I mean. And the reason why I say that is because put it this way, like the people of all races, obviously more black than most, have been being killed by the police for a long time, right?
Right.
And if you put it this way, like you had people in Gaza and Palestine, you know, hands up, don't shoot, you know, with solidarity from people of Ferguson. And all this is like on the mainstream media. And I try to get people to look at the bigger picture of why this is happening and why is it happening now? Like, why is all of a sudden all these police killings on the news? It's been happening for years. Like, there's no denying that. It's just, you know, and it's just, it is getting worse. But I think there's like, if you look at the bigger picture, there's more underlying issues of why the mainstream media is also pushing this. And it's just like why was the Eric Garner's announcement right after the announcement of Mike Brown? You know what I mean? That they weren't going to indict, they didn't indict Darren Wilson or Dan Pantilio. You know, it's like, in my personal opinion, I think it's basically they're like trying to pin the police against the people for like things that are going to be happening in the near future.
I absolutely agree with you, John, 100%. And that's one thing I think we touched on before is the militarization of police and the psychological makeup of these new police officers and how it makes for a bad chemistry for the future. And I think we're seeing that happen across the board. And, you know, just to be honest with you, it's quite scary because what I believe in is, you know, there is something called psyops. So I know that, you know, for many years, you know, the military complex and the government, you know, together have studied their psyops, and that's why we have so much propaganda and stuff like that. What my main fear is all of these incidents and even this list now that's going around, the 290th, the 300th, and you know, all of this is a massive psyop to almost condition us to saying that this is the new norm. It's not saying that, you know, what I see the mainstream media doing is taking a middle-of-the-road approach, and that middle-of-the-road approach is literally sacrificing our liberty and rights. That middle-of-the-road approach is not saying this is wrong or this is right. What it's doing is it's nullifying wrong and right, and it's making you just accept the fact that this is what it is. Right.
Yeah, and it's pretty bad. And like just like you said about like the psyops, I mean, I've always watched a lot of like storm clouds gathering videos, and if you look at there's a site, it's called the Psychology of Authority, and there's a few videos that lead into that back to even like the 60s and 70s, how the government would hire like psychologists and people to basically use when they figured out the power of like the television and the media to be able to control like minds and what people think. And it's just like the TV show, like you just said, it's conditioning the people to accept it. Like like, you know, if like the TV show Cops, it's like, all right, this is what the cops will do to you if you get in trouble, you know, and then it's just basically like media and the TV and like TV shows like that. Everything that you see on the news is either death, terror, or, you know, terrorist attack, this, that, and that. But basically, like you said, this is what it is.
I think it's reflected, you know, we're all online here. You know, all of us read the comments online and stuff like that. I think that, you know, what's going on is reflected in the attitudes of the people that are commenting online, too. And you can see it, you know, you'll see these inhumane ways that people are being terrorized by police departments, but you'll have people that support that. And to me, those people are the people that have already been brainwashed into accepting that, hey, it's not you, don't worry about it. It's those people, and they deserve what's coming to them.
Yeah, well, they just try to just like Anonymous and like protesters in general, like, you know, they demonize what we're doing and what we do and how we do it. You know, based on like, you know, they're even like on the media, they say like, you know, they're domestic, like put it this way, if you go to church, you're a domestic terrorist. If you do anything, you're a domestic terrorist. If you walk down the street with more than 4 people in a group, you're a domestic terrorist. You're a potential domestic terrorist.
Yeah.
You know, put it this way, we're all domestic terrorists, potential terrorists and everything. But yeah, I mean, and to actually for Phillip White, like, I mean, I watched that video numerous times, and they're like, oh, that he was combative and this, that, and the other thing, or whatever. Like, I don't know what videos anybody else has seen, but I see a guy laying there on the ground, and it looks like at least half the time he's like unconscious with a dog biting him. He's getting punched. They have to actually physically roll him over. I think he moved his arm and his leg once on his own. And, you know, he just the cops repeatedly punching him. And if he was so combative, why was the second officer, not the officer that was on top of him, but the other officer that was there on scene? If Phillip White was so combative and violent, why was the other cop just kind of like walking around like just another day on the job, like it was nothing? You know what I mean? Yeah. And then there's like, I'm sure you've seen like the recent video of the dude that's like allegedly stole a gun, and the cop just comes like. He gets actually hit by the police cruiser, like on purpose.
That's terrible.
Yeah. Like you can, if you watch the full video, like the dash cam of the car that hit him, he orders the car in front of him to back off so he can purposely drive around that cruiser and then just hit this guy. Probably that cruiser's probably doing at least 45 miles an hour.
Oh,
he's going fast enough to smash through a concrete wall. Put it that way.
Yeah, he ripped him. He really. I mean, that guy flew in the air.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And did you see the other one too? The other one where I forget which state or what town it was in, but the dude that was running from the cops, he was wearing a white T-shirt and shorts, and one of the cops says, "Tase him," and the cop shoots him in the back, and then he's like, "Oh shit, I'm sorry, I shot him." You know what I mean? Like,
that's what's going on. You know what? I want to hone in on that too. Like, you're seeing so many of these incidents back to back to back to back to back. And it makes me also, you know, if we were to write a book about what's going on right now, and we started the date of that book from January 1st, okay? And, you know, each death was a chapter of the book. Yeah, we'd have a very, very thick book right now.
You'd have a library.
Yeah, we damn near have an encyclopedia set. So, you know, when you look at how much information is coming out about these cases too, there's a saturation of information. Yeah. So it's hard to even keep up with the names. I personally myself am about to compile a list of as many names as I can of the, you know, not to say that all the cases aren't notable, but of the cases with the highest level of credibility and the highest level of visibility. I'm going to compile a list of those, but there's so many that it's hard to keep track of anymore.
Yeah, and one thing that I said the other day, and I think that people, it's just as equally as important as the police officers that are doing themselves, but I think that like the majority of people are actually concentrating on the police officers and what they're doing, and as in like murdering these people, but they also need to equally like concentrate on the people that are allowing the police to do this. Like the government and the states and the towns, they're actually allowing these police officers to kill these people and get away with it, and without fear of being charged. Like basically, when they announced that they were not going to indict Darren Wilson, and then they announced that they were not going to indict Dan Pantaleo, like they basically gave a green light to every single police officer in this country that they can kill somebody and get away with it.
I agree.
Well, the thing with Eric Harris also is the fact that after he was shot, which you clearly hear the gunshot, you can clearly see on his back, and I think I've sent a couple of you pictures of where you can see the blood. It's going down his arm. He's got another officer, which I believe was Mike Huckabee, that had his knee in his head, and when he's going, he shot me, he was, I'm losing my breath. You've got this other guy going, fuck your breath. I mean, they're ultimately responsible for his death, because even though Deputy Bates had shot him, they still could have given him some medical assistance, and he might have survived that bullet wound. So, you know, if those two other officers would have taken the time to address the wounds that he had, he might have lived, because it was just in the upper part of his shoulder. And I think that their actions were more intentional than the officer that accidentally shot him. Now, he needs to be held accountable, don't get me wrong, but the ones that held him down, it did not bother to give medical aid and said, fuck your breath. That shows intention. Their intention was to let him die.
Yeah, and I've thought similar things. Like the one thing that I talked to people, like the Kelly Thomas video. I mean, that video is like a half an hour long of him getting beat to death. You know what I mean?
Oh my God!
And one of the equally disturbing things when you watch that video of actually pretty much any video, Eric Garner or Phillip White, like these people, like you see these pictures like on Facebook or whatever, and it's like somebody's drowning in the water and everybody's just standing there with their cell phones in their hands.
Ugh.
You know what I mean? Like, making these videos, it's like, do something. Like, I mean, I don't even get, like, if you see the cops beating somebody to death, throw a rock at him, throw a bottle at him, do something. You might distract him enough to save this guy's life. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not like advocating violence or anything, but at the same time, like, if these people can't defend themselves, somebody needs to do it for them. You know what I mean? And it's just like, all these officers in any one of those cases, if those officers actually stood up and like you said, gave some type of medical attention to these people, it probably half of them would have survived, if not more.
Absolutely. But they're removing the threat. I mean, he was on the ground before he was accidentally shot. He was on his stomach. I mean, listen, I know that Deputy Bates probably shouldn't have been, I don't know why they put him in a sting operation in the first place. And that's a weird mistake to make. But I've watched him on TV when he was going in to turn himself in. He genuinely has remorse, where you have people like Darren Wilson saying, I'll just go on with my life, and all these other cops that just don't give a crap. And this man genuinely, you can tell it was an accident. Well, right, exactly. But I mean, you could tell it was an accident, but those other officers were actually paid officers, could have done something. And in the paper, they said, in an article, they said, oh, those other two officers didn't know he was shot. That's a lie. Yeah. Because
you can hear that gunshot clear as day.
Right. And then the person that's on top of his back holding his hand down, there's blood going down that same arm. How could you not know that? And so I think that while there was no guilty intent on Deputy Bates, it was negligent, but it was not intentional, there's definitely intent on the other two officers, and they should be charged as such.
Negligent or not, that dude needs to do some prison time, because he ended the life of a human being. Regardless of what that dude did, he was running away. He was not charging at an officer. He did not have a weapon in his hand. He was no longer committing a crime as far as like going to hurt someone. He was trying to flee. He was trying to run away. I don't care if that cop it was an accident or whether he intended. He still needs to face the music on that.
I think also that was a great point, Diedre. What you said is he was already on the ground and already on his stomach. Now, to use a taser while you're running, that's a different thing, because you're trying to catch up. Maybe you're trying to apprehend them. So if you use the taser, maybe you can get them. But if the person is we're seeing this as a common theme. The victim, at this point, we can call him a victim. The victim is already on the ground, already in the position, ready to be apprehended. There's no more running. There's no more struggling involved. But now he's going to be tased on the ground.
Well, and he was also struggling, too, after he was shot, because he was shot. And all of that anxiety, your adrenaline level goes up, you bleed faster. The pressure on his head, which was probably making it difficult for him to breathe in the first place. Just all of this stuff that was going on after he was shot. It just like we were saying with Phillip White. One, we don't know how he landed on the ground. He was very in close proximity to the car. So he could have hit his head on that, and that's what made him unresponsive. And then to be on your stomach and somebody punching you in the head, your head's hitting that concrete. He could have died of a brain bleed, and a 190-pound officer sitting on top of somebody while they're having a respiratory distress event. I mean, and they knew that because they called the ambulance for respiratory distress.
Yeah, I can tell you right now that knee in the back of the head doesn't feel good. That actually happened to me personally when on my recent arrest in Ferguson, February 21st. Actually, it was February 20th. It was a Saturday. Like we were in the streets, and we were in the streets and we're marching down the street, and they're supposed to give you 3 verbal orders to disperse over the loudspeaker. Like, as far as I know, they're supposed to actually specify the name of the officer giving the order. They're supposed to specify what you're doing, that it is illegal, and then they're supposed to do that 3 separate times, 3 orders to get out of the street. One of the cops pulled up. He's like, get the fuck out of the street. He's like, and we're like, what? And he's like, get the fuck out of the street. We're going to take police action. We were like, whatever, dude. You know what I mean? So we're like, whatever. We're peacefully protesting in the middle of the street, shutting traffic down, whatever. And so one of the cops pulls up and he goes to grab one of my buddies, and he like went to grab him, but he missed. And then my buddy looks at me. I look at him. I'm like, run, dude. You know what I mean? I told him straight up. I'm like, run. So he takes off running, and I'm like, so everybody's walking out of the street. Like, the majority of the people went to the right side of the street. I'm walking out of the street to the left, looking to my right, watching this kid run down the street. And this cop just straight up attacks me from behind, starts swinging me around, slams me on the ground, knees me in the back of the head. Another one knees me in the back. The other one stomps on my foot. Then they throw me in the back of the cruiser. Then they threaten to tase me. Then they brought me, and then it was like, then I got like a 15 cruiser escort to the Ferguson Police Department, where they held me for like 24. It was either $1,500 cash bail or a 24-hour hold.
And the other thing with John is that he was charged with something that was really funny: walking in a manner.
Yeah, walking in a manner. They charged me walking in a manner, resisting jaywalking.
What?
You know, like,
and there were 30 people in the street.
Crossing,
he was not the only one. There were about 30 people in the street.
Yeah, and then they charged me with destruction of property, because when the cop like jumped on my back basically and started swinging me around, in the process he ripped his belt loop on his pants. So they charged me with destruction of property. And I smoke weed every once in a while here and there, and I had like this one little one-hitter pipe in my pocket, so they got me for possession of marijuana paraphernalia.
Oh my god!
You see, I'm a hardcore. I'm a terrorist. You know, I'm a hardcore criminal.
Oh yeah.
I crossed the street with a marijuana one-hitter in my pocket.
Well,
apparently all of us citizens are criminals.
Well, apparently this is the weird United States that we live in now. You can be a criminal in one location and be a medical patient in another.
That's a really good point. As you could, and I wanted to say something too about something else that had happened. Is that there was a gentleman in Ferguson a couple years prior, and he was pulled over, and it was mistaken identity because his name was similar. His social security number was different. His middle initial was different, but he had the same first and last name as somebody's wanted. So they pulled him out of the car. They beat the crap out of him. And when they find out he's the wrong guy, they charge him with 4 counts of destruction of property. And what those destruction of property is that he bled on their uniforms during the beating.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Yeah.
That's gross.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Yeah, it's like that's what they do. Like, even Dan Johnson, the founder of Panda, he's a good guy. Yeah. Panda is the People Against the NDAA. Mm-hmm. He actually he was saying recently that, you know, like, how can they actually they want to make resisting arrest a felony charge. You know what I mean? And the weird thing is like they have initially arrested people for resisting arrest. It's like, how can you get arrested for resisting arrest when your original arrest is basically an illegal kidnapping? And that's what, like Dan said, you know what I mean? And it's outrageous. So basically what Dan was saying is what they want to do is they want to criminalize resisting arrest, and they want to make it a felony. So because basically what the police were initially, like, you know, interacting with you for in the first place isn't even a jailable offense. It's like more like a fine or something like that.
You're not being
so then when you give them an attitude, what's that?
Can I make a comment about that? Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish what you were saying.
Oh, no, I'm just saying, like, basically, like, what they want to do, like, it's not a jailable offense. So by doing that, they're going to make it a felony. And then, you know, and it just basically keeps that, you know, the prison industry going, which that's like a whole different story. Cause I could go on for a long time about that.
Well, you hit on the term that I was going to actually hit on, the prison industry. You know, there's a couple ways I'm going to go with this. So I'm just going to do it real fast. First of all, how the prisons have now turned into corporations. That's number one.
Right.
Corporations are meant to do one thing. They're meant to make money. They're not meant to lose money. They're meant to make more money.
Right.
So I believe that now that we've changed our prison structure into something that that's not in the control of the states or the or federal prisons anymore. Now we're giving them over to corporations. That creates a that breeds a whole new policy on filling these prisons.
Right.
Because all of this is passed down through now the laws will change politically. Now the judges will see cases differently. The amount of punishment imposed will be a lot harsher because
and
this
all
is
the
about money.
and all the politicians that are starting to buy stock in these privately owned prisons is going to increase.
So let me ask you this. Do you believe, and I believe I know what your answer is, it's probably the same as mine, but do you believe that we are very quickly heading into a police state?
We've been there. We've been there for a long time.
Have you seen they had it's called I think it was called a Requiem for Change or something like that. Anyway, they had a meeting on C-SPAN 2 the other day where they were talking about the police state and if we're in one already or not. Did you see that?
No, I didn't.
Oh man, it was phenomenal. And I believe, a couple of the speakers that are on there, I'll try to share some of that information with you after this. But a couple of the speakers that were on there, they hit on some good key points. Though we're not, particularly like Nazi Germany, anything like that right now, we may be headed in that direction, but there's two Americas that are happening right now. So what people are you talking about when you talk about a police state? And I believe that's true for America right now. Some of us are literally feeling like we're under a police state oppression, while others, normally the ones that have more money feel like the police don't even exist.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, if you ask me about the police state, well, I can tell you right now, I personally with the crew that I was down in Ferguson with, standing across the street from the Ferguson police station with an MRAP rolling up a hill with National Guard and riot police walking towards us, telling us that they were loading non-lethal rounds into their guns and they were going to open fire on us. So you tell me if that's a police state.
Yeah,
I'm glad Ferguson fought back and all of that though, because it would. I understand where we're moving, but it would have gotten there way quicker. Where every time there was a protest, such as even in New York City when there were 10,000 people in the streets, that they would have started using that. They tend to go with the status quo, like whatever works, like our written scripts going, he was grabbing for my gun or my taser or I felt in fear for my life. Yeah. That they would start to use that as a as a go-to method because it worked for someone else. So I was really, really glad that it didn't work in Ferguson. And every single day there were still people out there. I obviously wasn't out there as long as you were, John. But I remember the first night of curfew, I went anyway. And, I bought rubber bullets shooting around my head and ducking behind cars. It was just the nuttiest thing I've ever been through in my entire life. But I'm glad that I was there, and I'm glad that all the people, they showed up the next day, like 1,200, way more that were there the day before, to keep fighting this, because that would just be the norm. And you see, they haven't done it anywhere else.
Yeah, I mean, those protests, they've been going. I mean, as far as I know, there's either actions or meetings or something. They've been going every single day since August, and they're actually getting back the Ferguson protesters, the people that actually live in Ferguson, like they're actually getting back from South Carolina today. Or actually, they're probably getting back right about now, and they're bringing 2 busloads. They're bringing actually like anywhere from 200 to 300 people with them to Ferguson to protest in Ferguson to shut the streets down. Actually, probably as we speak right now, I believe.
Wow. Listen, you guys, I'm going to go ahead and go to a music break. I would like every single one of you to hold on, stand by, mute your microphones, and then we're going to be back and we're going to keep talking. John, I definitely want to talk to you more about like Anonymous's role in a lot of this.
Yeah, no doubt.
And Phillip White, like I said, I know that you weren't a part of the actions that were taking place. And Law Saints is kind of a different collective, but everybody still works together. And I just want your take on, how the officer's name was, disclosed, and they were right, thank goodness, because we didn't want to repeat you don't want to repeat of Ferguson, you know what I mean, where they got the wrong officer. But, just about that, and the role you see Anonymous being in as these cases progress, if you see Anonymous getting more full force in those, or, so on and so forth. So as soon as we get back, we're going to start that discussion with you.
Okay.
All right. Stay tuned.
Whoop. This is what happens when you call the cops. Say what? This is what happens when you call the cops. Come on. This is what happens when you call the cops. You get your rights violated or you all get shot. This is what happens when you call the cops. This is what happens when you call the cops. This is what happens when you call the cops. You get your rights violated or you all get shot. I'm sick of people being victimized by criminal cops. Psychopathic predators terrorizing neighborhood blocks. Equipped with pepper spray, mace, cuffs, tasers, and glocks. They like serial killers acting out subliminal thoughts. Forget what you taught. These cops have got a license to kill. Witness means that they can use it at will. Code of silence means that the pigs will never let out a squeal. And if they go to court, they know the judge will make them a deal. For real, that's why they stopping me, locking me up and stopping me, confiscating my property, targeting my demography, making the poor commodities, profiting off of poverty, enforcing policies, supporting prison economies. Yeah, no one makes money when the violence stops. Hating brutality's the way to make a criminal crop. Blood in the gutters, how the rich butter they bread at the top. And that's why this is what happens when you call the cops. Come on. This is what happens when you call the cops. This is what happens when you call the cops. This is what happens when you call the cops. You get your rights violated or you all get shot. This is what happens when you call the cops. This is what happens when you call the cops. This is what happens when you call the cops. You get your rights violated or you all get shot.
911, what's your emergency?
I'm mixed up in the system and these pigs is trying to murder me. They mace me, they tase me, they trained them to hate me, degrade and detain me and change just like slavery. Hands up, face down, left hook right quick. Throw you down, hold you down, smack you with that nightstick. Night shift, riding round, see you with your J's on. You'll get sprayed on over Skittles, word to Trayvon. All the people saying is it's crazy down in Florida. What you saying is you playing, it's the same in California. They ganging like they banging and they'll hang you down in Georgia. Frame you in a case for what you say without a lawyer. Swarming with no warning, now they sorting through your residence. Stormed in with no warrant, now they snorting all the evidence. You better just learn to dodge a box, cause this is what happens when you call the cops. Come on, this is what happens when you call the cops. Say what? This is what happens when you call the cops. Come on, this is what happens when you call the cops. You get your rights violated or you all get shot. Yeah. This is what happens when you call the cops. Come on, this is what happens when you call the cops. Say what? This is what happens when you call the cops. You get your rights violated or you all get shot. We got a baby in the living room. Get the grenades, pull a pin, throw it in the crib, blow him away. There's a homeless guy camping here. Well, tell him to pack. When he gets up and starts leaving, shoot the bum in the back. This guy rolled through a stop sign. That's drugs for sale. Get some doctors to rape him, send him a bill in the mail. We got a black man knocking on a white woman's door. With 10 shots point blank, he ain't gonna knock no more. Look, the problem starts at the academy. New cadets are indoctrinated with a military mentality. With them as the soldiers and us as the people they're battling. We're either collateral damage or combat fatalities. Either way, the reality's that it's not gonna stop. Cause this is what happens when you call the cops. This is what happens when you call the cops. Come on, this is what happens when you call the cops. This is what happens. Say what? Happens when you call the cops. Come on. This is what happens when you call. Yeah. This is what happens. Happens when you call the cops. This is what happens when the kill we happen. Call when you all get shot. Bang.
Hey, what is the next step then? I mean, I understand we take to the streets, and that's going to happen. I mean, eventually I'm going to have to get out to New Jersey. It's quite a bit of ways for me, but it's definitely going to be a trip worth it. I just want to make sure I'm not the only one out there. You know what I mean? Although it wouldn't matter. I remember in Maine, there was a lot of controversy about a protest we were doing, and we ended up smoothing out people's concerns, but I had about 35 people on one of the coldest days out there, and it was really a good protest. But a friend of mine, Deontay Owens, he said to me, I said, listen, we're not going to go because I'm not going to be the only one down there. He said, but listen, he said, we're not going because anyone else is. We're going because it has to be done. Okay, so go ahead and talk to us about, the anonymous role and where you see that going, in the future. We have a lot of different collectives that kind of work under the guise of anonymous, but where do you see that going in the future? Do you see us as being effective, or, just go ahead and explain that to us.
Well, I mean, as far as anonymous, I can't like. I can only speak for myself.
Right.
I don't like to like speak for everyone, but I mean, I guess there are a lot of things going on in the public eye as well as behind the scenes. There's the a lot of Anonymous as well as all the different organizations, and Anonymous is like Awaken Cincinnati, just to name a few, Awaken Cincinnatians. There's a Non-United that are doing group sex all over the country. There's just a lot. There's a lot going on, and I can tell you one thing, right? Like basically everything has been picking up speed. Everything is getting stronger, and people are doing a lot more things. Like I said, like in the public eye and behind the scenes. Myself personally, I'm working on what's going to be the Million Mask Movement Truth Fest, as well as I'm trying to organize a meeting. Basically, my ideal thing would be to make like an effective change or whatever. Marching in the streets isn't going to do anything. It's going to raise awareness, and it's going to show that like people like on the streets that like we're not giving up and we are getting stronger. But is it going to actually change anything? No, it's not. All it is going to do raise awareness. So people need to take that and run with it, and like direct actions in their own towns, direct actions nationwide, statewide, whatever. But you know what I mean? You can't just concentrate on marching in the streets. There has to be more than that, because if that's all you're doing, people have been doing that for hundreds, if not thousands of years, and it does not, all it does is raise awareness, and that's not going to actually.
I think it also pushes the fact that we're uncomfortable, that we're making them uncomfortable because we are feeling a lot of uncomfortability. I'm not saying that this was the end to all ends, but when Ferguson started happening, you did see the 313 whatever. I used to know the name of this program. The program with the military grades, the 1033 program with the military grade weapons going to local police departments. In the news they said that was being investigated and started to be looked at. There were a lot of things that were now starting to get the attention of lawmakers and so on and so forth because of being in the streets and the society, being discontent. I'm not saying it's going to fix anything, but you do see a lot more of our concerns being, mentioned.
In my personal opinion, all I see that is just throwing crumbs to the people just to get them to shut up.
Right, and we won't remain silent.
That's
so
just
you can
my
remain
opinion,
silent.
or whatever. But
right, no, I get it.
They and like we were talking about earlier, the Department of Justice, right? They went down to Ferguson and they, investigated, did all this, and I can tell you right now that one of those judges that actually was forced, one of the judges that resigned was actually the judge that was sitting on both of my arrests in Ferguson. But then they bring in this state judge, and nobody knows how he works, how he is, is he gonna try to play the good guy and then end up screwing everybody over? It's just all you're doing is replacing one dude with another dude that does the same thing that he does, and who's to say he's not any different? And like I said, any of these like minute changes, like they'll arrest this one officer for shooting, and just to try to get the people to shut up. You know what I mean? And we're not going to shut up. Like I said, people are doing more things. People are. The movement as far as anonymous like nationwide and worldwide, like all the activist groups are like, people are starting to wake up. It's happening slowly, and in my opinion, it's happening way too slowly. But it is people are picking up the pace. People are starting to organize more and do different things. And it just needs to keep happening. But I think, in my honest opinion, like it's not happening fast enough. And like I even said from when I started the Million Mask March in 2013, I am not going to be that 80-year-old guy that is just like, I tried, I'm going to do something or I'm going to die trying to do it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
That's,
I feel
that's what it's going to take. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't feel like going, when I was younger, I did this. I'm going to do it and get it done. I'm going to say when I was younger, I was in the position where I could push this type of change, and it happened. Not, we fought and nothing became of it. Because, I have children, and I'm devastated at the world that they have waiting for them once they get to adults, and they no longer have mommy to protect them. And they go to protests. They went to the first one in 2013, Million Mask March, 2 of them. Mine was the little guy that was crying all the time, sucking his thumb, but he was 4. You know what I'm saying? So, but it's about teaching our kids too what we're doing. And when they get older, they might not think that we were right on any of this, but at least they'll know what to do when something happens that isn't supposed to happen. You know what I mean? It's giving them the tools to fight back, because I never knew about protesting until Occupy Wall Street and until the Million Mass March. And, you know, I'll tell you, it's funny because we went down to the Million Mass March primarily because there were a bunch of people that said they were going to do a citizen's arrest of Obama in Congress. And I thought that at the same time,
that had nothing to do with me or anybody I was associated with. I want to make that loud and clear right now.
Right, and I know that, and I'll reiterate that. But I was planning on going, and it was last minute that day before that I forgot, and I saw that, and I'm like, what the audacity of people, like, you know, that takes some guts to want to try to do that. So we're going to go down there, 7-hour drive, just to see. I want to watch, like, if that happens. And then,
I hear what you're saying, like, just to see. But I tell you, like, there are people actually talking about now, like, this to like 2015, like they want like you know, you always have different people that want to take it to different levels, and like there's like people that like there are people that want to go in guns blazing, you know what I mean? And that's just ridiculously stupid. Like nobody wants a bloodbath. And even if you were to have like an armed attempt to take over the government, you would need at least like 30 million people. Like you would need millions of people to pull that off. But and there aren't that many people that are involved right now. You know what I mean? Not that we'll go there at one time and stand there like together, you know, united. But you know what I mean? It's just there's like put it in my mind, like right now. Honestly, there's like 2 types of ways to look at like basically the way I plan things, and one is that I plan in one way, as in the shit is going to hit the fan in 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. And the other way is the long run. You know what I mean? I plan like, I make the plans for the future. I'm trying to plan shit for the future, like this, like certain events like the Million Mass Movement Truth Fest is 2016. You know what I mean? Like I'm planning on, that's in my left hand. And in my right hand, I have my bug out bag, like ready to go at a moment's notice. You know what I mean? So there's 2 different ways to look at things. And some people are ready to go right now. Some people will never be ready to go. And
will you be going to New Jersey for the protests for Phillip White? That should be happening within the next month or so.
What's that?
I said, would you consider, or are you going to go to the protests in New Jersey for Phillip White? That it's within a month or so that's going to be going down.
Yeah, it's likely. I mean, as far like personally, I have some things going on in my personal life that I need to address. Mm-hmm. But other than that, I mean, I'm always up for like pretty much for whatever. But you know, like I said, I mean, I support every, like I put it this way, I've like with the Million Mass March and the marches that I've attended and being in Ferguson, and it's just like I said, I mean, I'll say it again, like I'm marching in the streets it's good, but there needs to be it's not enough. There needs to be more, and you can't just. I mean, we go down to DC. Like put it like I've even like I know this guy that lives in DC, and he didn't even know about the Million Mass March. He lives there, and he's like I'm like related to him by marriage, and he like I was showing him pictures and videos of it, and he's like that wasn't in DC. I'm like what? You know what I mean? Like
see, I'd like to say something about that. That goes back to the psyops. And I believe, you know, I understand where you're coming from too. I'm cooking while I'm listening, and I'm still a part of this conversation. But it goes back to psyops. It goes back to we're losing the war on information, and people are so, you know, they look at the TV now and they say, well, it's on TV. I must believe it because, you know.
No. That's the thing. You have never seen the Million Mass March on TV. Mm-mm. Ever. Anywhere on TV. And there's a reason for that. Because they don't want the people that sit there and watch Friends and all those bullshit TV shows to see all these people in DC and be like, oh, well, what are they doing? Why are they doing it? You know what I mean?
That's right.
But there were people videotaping it, though. On the streets, it's like they'd never seen such a thing. Because we were taking over streets and so on and so forth, and we had our own little media crew that was there, and they marched with us, and they said that we had about 1,000 people, and they said for kind of as small as we were, because there's usually more, that we had the most balls of anybody because, you know, taking the street. They'd never seen anybody go in the middle of the street like that and just take over the street.
Yeah, that's the funny thing. Like at the first march in 2013, when we met at the Washington Monument, like my cousin was over at the White House when they were like setting up the stage and everything. Like he had to be there for them to set up the stage because of the permit or whatever that we got for the first year.
Right, we lost that in 5 minutes.
We were at the Washington Monument, and then we were about to march from the monument to the White House, and my cousin calls me and he's like, "Oh, they're saying that you can't march," and I'm like, "What the fuck are you talking about, dude? You know what I mean?" I'm like, "What do you like?" You know, and so basically, they're like I don't know. My cousin put somebody on the phone, said he was like some type of police officer. I don't know who the hell he was, but he's like, "Oh, well, if you guys are gonna come march from there to here," he's like, "you got to stay on the sidewalk and be polite and blah blah." I'm like, "All right, whatever, dude." You know what I mean? And then as soon as we leave the monument, we took the streets right there, you know, and it's just.
And we lost our permit within like 5 minutes.
One thing, the main, like as far as the main mass march in DC goes, like the Metro Police in DC, they were. I mean, I'll be the first one to say fuck the police all day, every day. But I would say this: the Metro Police that were actually like, as far as like escorts or whatever for the march, you know, they basically let us have free reign of whatever the hell we wanted to do. When it came to like the DHS. Mm-hmm. And like the other authorities, those are the ones that were like tasing people in 2014. Those are the people that were like the assholes on the scene. But
yeah, absolutely. Except for like when one of our people were arrested for cutting the police tape. That was just nuts.
No, that was Michael Sticks. That's my boy right there. That dude's awesome.
Oh, I love him to death. Absolutely.
They put the tape around everybody like they said that they were going to perform like a mass arrest on everybody that was standing in front of the White House, and that's when he was just like he was a street man. He just pulled out his scissors and cut the tape, and they just snatched him up like that. But I mean, they charged him with all kinds of charges. Justin King from he writes for the antimedia.org and the Fifth Column News. He had to come back up. He lived in Florida at the time. He had to come back up and testify in his case. And like they charged him with like assault on a federal officer and all kinds of stuff. But it basically got boiled down to like a $50 fine for like destruction of property for cutting the tape. You know?
Oh wow, there's another destruction of property crap. But no, yeah. I like Michael Sticks. He's a really cool dude. And I was just devastated when that happened to him. I watched the video a lot because I was. And, you know, I thought the thing that was most heartfelt is as soon as that happened to him, they had 1,500 people surrounding.
Yeah.
And they right away, they wanted to know who he was. He wasn't just some schmo that was being arrested. He was part of our family, whether we knew him or not. And I didn't know him ahead of time. But I felt connected because I'm looking and they're going, "What is your name?" And he had said what his name was. And they said, "What did you get arrested for?" He said, "I cut the police tape." And that rings in my head like a million times. I'm like, that's just crazy. And then this last march, before we even started marching, him and another
Fultz.
guy were Fultz, right?
John Fultz.
They were
that was funny. Yeah, he had a pocket knife on him, like it wasn't like a weapon type knife. It was a pocket knife.
Right, and he said he never got charged with anything in the end.
No, yeah, but they held him for a while and then they released him like later on. I'm pretty sure it was like later on that night, like after it had gotten dark or whatever. But you know, I think like that arrest right there was basically, I think that like in my honest opinion, I think they were trying to instigate, like the authorities were trying to instigate. I mean, because we hadn't even started. Everybody like we hadn't even like, you know, the group hadn't even like
done anything yet.
Haven't even like gotten, most of the people hadn't even gotten to the monument yet, and they just pulled that off. But you know, it was ridiculous. But
so
anyway.
Becky, do you know of any protests or stuff that are going on in Vineland, New Jersey for Phillip White? Like how soon that's going to be? I know that you were supposed to have a meeting with Walter Hudson tonight, but you weren't able to do it due to daycare issues. But do you know of any actions that are going to be going on down there?
Not yet. I would like to organize something. Like I spoke to you about the research I've done online, that we actually can have a rally / protest, whatever you want to term it, as long as it's on public property. It can be on a sidewalk, as long as traffic's not being blocked or anything, and it's peaceful and there's no violence. We don't need a permit. So I would like to find
You also
out
don't need a
and
permit.
get people involved and schedule something and get the ball rolling on that, definitely.
Well, I think the other thing too that a lot of people don't understand is that First Amendment activities don't require a permit. I will not be permitted to speak in a land where I'm free to speak. I will not pay
do I have to
for-
ask you for permission to tell you that I don't like you?
I'm not going to be permitted to do anything in a land where I'm free to do so, and I'm not going to pay for free speech.
Right.
And that's it. And when you say not to block sidewalks and stuff, I just start laughing because I've been into those protests. I'm sure you were too, John. Like, yeah, that won't happen. Especially
we shut down the highway after Antonio Martin's when he got killed. We went down to Berkeley and we shut down the intersections in front of the gas station where he got shot. And then the cops start showing out more and more cruises. So then we walked across the street under the highway, and then we shut down the highway, because the highway's right there. We shut down that highway. Then we walked down the highway, walked down the off ramp under the highway, up the on ramp on the other side, shut down the other side of the highway, and then we all walked back to the gas station to leave. We all got back in our cars, and Bishop was like, "Yo, follow me." We got in our cars, drove back under the highway, drove back up onto the highway, and then shut it down again, just to be like, "Fuck you," you know what I mean?
Well, now they're trying. Excuse me. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I just said right. That's okay.
They're actually trying to take those rights to do so away from us now. So this
good luck.
Good luck
this
with
system
that.
It sucks ass.
Well, good luck with that because you have a lot of things that people don't even realize that, there are a lot of people in Ferguson that have lawsuits out because of unjust arrest and the way they were treated when they were protests. People don't know, though.
There's going to be a lot more lawsuits coming.
Absolutely. I'm wondering if I could file on it just because I was having a rubber bullet shot across my head. I swear to God, I have PTSD from it. But I mean, I'm good. But anyway, it's even in New York City when all that was going down with Occupy, it takes years for people for these cases to be resolved. So nobody realizes from 2011 till now that they've shelled out a ton of money because they were violating people's rights. So even though they're saying they're going to try to take them away, once you challenge it in court, usually they don't win those cases. And when, blocking sidewalks, I'm taking the street. I don't care. You go, John. I'm going to. You and I are in the front lines, and we're we're shutting shit down. It has to be done.
Why y'all leaving me behind?
Because you're far away. Yeah, you're coming and shutting them down with us.
No, but I can tell you,
right on with us.
Even after all the money that they spent on on the protest from August up until the wintertime, they even the city of St. Louis was actually requesting more money from the government to handle the snow and snow plowing because they had spent all their money on whatever they thought they needed to spend it on due to the protests.
Well, the thing is that whenever any action causes an opposite and equal reaction, you notice when they took out the tanks and they took out all the, RoboCops out of there, people were calm and they were fine.
Yeah. I mean, and that's another thing too. We were down there every single time we were down there in front of the Ferguson Police Department. They had the riot squad out there. They had the National Guard out there. They had the metal barricades out there. All that, right? And then it was like a week later. They were having a pro-police rally in the parking lot of the police station, which we were never allowed to enter. And they even had one of those little chimney fires going, and they had balloons and everything, and everybody was on the police property, in the parking lot hanging out. And we're like, hey, we didn't get no campfire, we didn't have no balloons, you know what I mean? But yeah, we shut that down too. We shut that down with the quickness.
Well, yeah, I watched that on live stream. It was pretty awesome.
Well, what I'd like to do, as far as a protest, is for it to be peaceful so we can be heard and keep it peaceful so that situations that have happened on TV, with rallies, people being pepper sprayed, and I don't want that to happen. I don't want more people to get hurt. I want our voices to be heard, but at a decent level without more injuries and more conflict.
I can tell you all protests like the ones that you're speaking of and the ones that we were at are peaceful protests. They should be peaceful protests. But I can tell you this, there is no ever any guarantee. Because in Ferguson, as well as in Chicago, the protesters were not the ones that initiated the violence or instigated the violence.
Nope,
you know what I mean?
not at all.
So there needs to be that mentality that you need to be at any protest, peaceful or not, you need to be aware of a potential outcome of what could happen. And also, there is a time and a place for violence, and a protest to protest the death of an unarmed civilian is not the time for violence on the behalf of protesters.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
That's very true.
But peaceful doesn't mean quiet, though.
Oh, hell no. Definitely not. Be loud as hell.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
But a lot of people go, and those aren't peaceful. And I'm going, what do you mean? Just because they're chanting doesn't mean they're not peaceful, because that's not what that means. Peaceful protest does not mean that you're quiet. I won't remain silent so you can remain comfortable. It's about stirring up that uncomfortableness to let them know that they're being put on notice for the things that they're doing. I mean, they cannot. It's not okay. And
right.
They're obviously not going to listen unless you scream it loud enough and unless you bring attention to yourself. And I understand what you're saying, Becky, about, peaceful. When we take the streets, it's not out of being non-peaceful, but it's to get their attention.
Yeah, exactly.
You want them to know you're there, because you can have a protest where no police are around because nobody's taking the streets, so they don't show up to them. They don't. Yep. They have no idea that you're protesting them because the news isn't covering it. But if you stand in the middle of the street and you're chanting, they're going to know you're there.
Right. I think at the end of the day, it's all about getting, I think we all have the same goal. It's about getting the message across. And I think as long as people don't lose focus as to why they're there and what the purpose is, then it won't just be a bunch of, a group of people gathering, in a public place to do a whole lot of nothing. It can actually turn into something that can, open up topics of discussion to other people that may not know about it, i.e. bringing awareness. But, you just can't lose focus of that.
Right. I want to do a die-in there, too. I think that would be powerful.
Right. Yeah, and just to point out, too, as far as, because you're speaking of organizing protests, a few people I know, as far as organizing protests, there's, I mentioned Dan Johnson earlier, but he's the founder of PANA. They came out with Solutions Institute. It's actually it's an online thing for protests and activists. And Terry Christopher, he's from Florida, but they came up with it's an online an activist organization map, an interactive map for it's in the process of being built for future use. I don't think it's going to be ready. It actually might be ready by the time you want to have this protest in New Jersey, but it's basically a spot where people can go and organize together different it'll be every different organization from Anonymous to Oath Keepers to 99% to Occupy to all the different groups. But basically you need to, and more and more important thing is, as far as peaceful protests in the streets, just from personal experience, you need to be careful of the people that are actually driving in the streets, because I've actually had a few of my friends hit by cars of civilians, of other civilians that are driving through the protest.
Yeah, that happened a lot at the Million Mask March.
No, it happened once with the Mercedes in DC, but it happened in Ferguson twice. One of my buddies actually went up on the hood and over, and then it happened again in Cleveland at the Tamir Rice March. Honestly, at the time, it was on even on mainstream media all over the place, and it just seemed the thing to do was to hit protesters and people complain. People complain about the protesters in the streets. Well, we're out there. People are saying that people are going to get hurt because you guys are out in the streets. It's why do you think we're in the streets? Because people are getting hurt, and we need to put an end to it. So,
do you think the people that are hitting protesters are pro-police, and it's their way of standing up for the police?
Well, I can tell you one thing. The guy that was driving the Astro van that hit one of my personal friends in St. Louis when we were down there for Mike Brown. I was one of the first people that we basically chased this dude down the street because he hit somebody a protester, which is a pedestrian in the street, and we chased the dude down the street. He ended up getting blocked in traffic. I ran up to the driver's side window. The dude had a 9mm in his hand, and there was a badge hanging from the visor of the minivan. And he was handcuffed. He was put in the back of a van, but we did find out that he was released the next day with no charges.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, and that can lead back to what he was saying earlier about the like psyops. I mean, who's to say that this guy wasn't paid? You know what I mean? It's like, and trying to get into it that much, it's not that much of an importance to me, because I mean, I know that's a possibility. So I just go with that and move on to the next, you know what I mean? But is it a possibility? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I can't wait until all of that goes down. Personally, I'm in the mood for a good protest, and we only have less than 7 months until November 5th.
Yeah.
I can't believe how it's coming by so fast, and like me and my friend are counting down the days, and just really, really amazing stuff. It's really a good time, and then everybody sticks up for each other, which I think is what draws me to it. Is nobody could do anything to me when I'm with my brothers and sisters,
Right.
and that's what you guys are, and and we fight for the things that have been done to other of our brothers and sisters like Michael Brown, Eric Garner, Tamir Rice, Jordan Baker, all of these people. I'm tired of them becoming hashtags. So
I think actually you're keying in on something that's very important. Again, I'm sorry I'm not interjecting more often. I'm trying to finish up dinner, but I think the topic of discussion needs to start to turn into how can we change the mentality of people who are traditionally lazy when it comes to standing up for their own rights into turning into more of the word of an activist, change their mentality into activists, because, activists only create more activists. Think about why all of you guys, are fighting for causes and fighting for reasons. It's because you've probably done some research, you come across somebody else, you followed somebody else, you've checked out somebody else. So, the activist culture, it self-populates. It really does. I mean, it grows on its own. So I think, the topic of discussion we need to probably start having is how can we affect people more to get them to actually commit to the activities of being an activist, which means, fighting for freedom, and not just, every 2 months when somebody from your neighborhood gets shot and killed that you knew from a long time ago. Like,
Right.
literally, doing research and having, discussions like we're having, and really opening the community's eye into moving in that direction. How do you guys think that we can really start to do that?
I think it's already in its process. I mean, the Million Mask March, when we say million, there's never a million in DC, not yet anyway, but you definitely all across the country, I mean, in different states, Phoenix and areas in Florida, London, I mean, there's tons of people taking the streets, so it's definitely becoming infectious for people to just do that. It's hard when you have the indoctrination of the mainstream media.
Yeah, I mean, I think like as far as like you like changing somebody into an activist is like bottom line, kind of like what you're saying. But I think that I don't think you can't really change anybody. I mean, you can plant you can plant that seed. You can give them something.
Yeah, just planting the seed.
Yeah, you got to plant the seed and let them do it on their own. You know what I mean? They have to, because they're not going to believe everything that you tell them. They're probably not going to believe most of the stuff that you tell them, whether you give them evidence to back it up or not. You know what I mean? So and like I've been talking with Tammy a lot about. Well, she's been actually telling me a lot about is that she would organize local meetings, like town meetings and like activist meetings on a local level, doing a lot of like direct action. So she got a lot of results that way. She started a lot of different like organizations and foundations like in the local area. And then like, I mean, if and like that can also be like a preventative, because like if these people know that these actions in these meetings are taking place on a regular basis in that area, then certain things are less likely to take place in that area. And if people do that nationwide, I mean, that's one possibility how to do it. But I mean, there's a lot of different ways to like organize. And Like
I
getting
just
getting people out to events. That's like actually getting people to protests. You know what I mean? They say like what the rule of thumb is, like, 10% actually show up, and I mean
I heard it was
pretty
one
much
out
on
of
point.
three. I've always heard 1 out of 3, and I've had.
I wish 1 out of 3 would show up in DC.
Yeah, that would
I've
be
had
a
50.
good drink right
Oh my
there.
goodness.
Hell yeah.
I've had 50. I've had 50% before 1 out of 2. And when we did a Black
That's
Lives
good. That's
Matter
good.
here, it was definitely. But it's about strategy too. Whenever I did the event page, like I didn't invite you, John, because I knew you weren't going to travel all the way over here. So I invited.
Never know.
You never
You never know.
Well, I went to Maine, which is right through your area. So
Right.
if I could do that, I mean, I'm sure you could. But it was, simple Black Lives Matter protest. But what we did is just started using Facebook's, people in your area and just inviting people within, this area to come. And then that's when our response was better, because there are people that will say, yeah, I'm going just out of support so they can follow it,
Yeah.
and not, they live in Italy. They're not
Yep.
coming.
Yep. Yeah.
So, making it so that, especially if you live in the area where you want to do the protest, that you can click, friends in this area, it makes it a whole lot easier, because then you're hitting that base.
Yeah. I can tell you one thing that I've noticed, I've noticed myself, just from like seeing like certain actions, whether online or not.
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed that when an action or a protest is organized and there's literally one goal or one cause, more people will show up to that. Like as far as like the Million Mass March, it's like a buffet. You know what I mean? Because like everybody's like, the way my thing is like there's too many problems to pick just one, so we're gonna cover them all. But
Right.
I've noticed that like if there's like a Palestine march or a Black Lives Matter march or a GMO march, the March Against Monsanto, I've noticed that more people show up to marches that are extremely specific on one subject. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know, just throwing that out there.
But I think that also comes down to, I think that boils down to a lot of it. I think we need more marketing people, honestly, that understand the psychology of people, on our side of the fence. I really do, because we got a lot of good people such as yourself and everybody else that's on this call. And if we could get more marketing people to affect more minds, I believe that we could get a stronger push. But right now, what I see out there, and because especially like with something like Anonymous, there's a lot of different collectives and a lot of different groups here and there. Now, if we could provide like some kind of, I don't want to say hierarchy because that might be the wrong word, but some kind of network, a feasible network that can't really be compromised, but can still be powerful enough to keep truth with the people. I think that would provide, the foundation and the basis for unity that's necessary. Because I'll focus on what you were saying earlier. When you're, Diedre, when you're out in the streets with your brothers and sisters, you feel good and you feel like nothing, really bad could come of that. And I think more people need to know that. More people need to feel that. And if we can affect more people with that emotion and with that feeling, that's what's going to really win this information war, pretty much.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I hate saying information war because I think we all know who says information war on information.
If I can make a comment, that's another reason why. Not only did I make the I am Phillip White page, I also made the We Stand United page to get it out there on social media, to get people to follow, to get people to listen, because social media plays a big part in everyone's life. Everyone is on social media now. So yeah. I believe that's where it all starts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. If it wasn't for social media, a lot of these events, including the Million Mass March, probably would not have happened.
Did you ever think the Million Mass March would be as big as it was, John? I know someone said in 2012.
No, definitely not. I mean, I don't know. Started with one, and then by November 5th in 2013, there was over 460 marches in over 100 and something countries, and then there was even more in 2014, and actually, you bring that up. I just want to throw it out there. I don't want to get too much into it, but like I said, like marching is like it's. I think bigger things need to be done other than marching in the streets. The marching in the streets still needs to continue, obviously, to raise awareness. But like bigger, as far as like bigger things, like the Million Mass Movement Truth Fest. I'm basically like I went to Woodstock '99. It's basically Woodstock. It's a 3-day concert. They had like
Me too.
they had you were there.
Yeah, I went too in upstate New York.
Awesome, man. I was there. But basically, from going to that and being involved in activism, I basically put the two together, and that's where like the Truth Fest. That's where I got the idea for the Truth Fest. There's actually a Facebook page that's been made for it for over a year now. It's the Million Mask Movement Truth Tour, and basically, I have over the past months and months been bringing in all the truth artists like Vinnie Straub, Steve Grant, Payday Monsanto, Elias Clay, Ghost Rider. There's All Knees Everything, Travis Spade from St. Louis. There's actually on the page you can get the complete list. But as I'm confirming more and more, like people that are confirming that they're actually going to come and perform at the Truth Fest, I add them to the list. But I've also got guest speakers coming in like Adam Kokesh, Dan Johnson, the founder of Panda, Justin King, like. Just a bunch of people. Bruce, he started the Peacekeepers in St. Louis. Him and one of his friends started the Peacekeepers in St. Louis. Like, it's basically like it's going to be like a Woodstock type event with performances. With like basically draw the people in with the music, and then use that. And then there's going to be like workshops for kids, activities for kids. Educate. It's going to like have like a couple people perform. Then Dan Johnson gets on the stage for like 45 minutes and talks to the people about Panda and the NDAA. And then, then have a couple more performances. Then somebody gets on stage and talks to the people about the Trans-Pacific Partnership. You know what I mean? Bring them in with the music and then educate them at the same time. And, and I mean, I have even more. I'm still waiting on like at least another 20 to 30 different confirmations as far as like a modal technique, like
John,
constant flow, a lot of different people, but I just want to throw it out there. You should check it out.
I would really appreciate it if you can request me on Facebook because I want to get more information, especially about that Truth Fest. That sounds awesome. Yeah,
it's gonna be one of the most epic event of your lifetime. If it's just as long as if everything goes the way I have it planned and the way I want it to, I can guarantee you one of the best times of your life, and you will walk away with a lot more information than you went in. And not only that, I'm talking networking, like different booths, even bringing in like all the different alternative media radio stations. Everybody has their own booth, handing out pamphlets, information on chemtrails, GMOs, TPP, NDAA, everything. Federal Reserve, like it's just, I can't get into like the full details of it, but it's just going to be insane.
You definitely have to keep us posted. And if you want, before that goes down, we can definitely do another show to where you take some time to explain it. I know that Becky wants.
There's going to be plenty of time. It's not going to be until probably the summer of 2016.
Okay, yeah, we'll definitely get you on then. Becky wants to talk about Alyssa Allen actually died 10 days earlier than Phillip White. She was in the Cumberland County Jail and she was found unresponsive and died there. And so she has some information that she did want to speak to us about and, let everybody know because she has some information on that. Go ahead, Becky.
Well, my husband knows her brothers and her family personally. I only know one of her brothers. I have spoke with her mother. I did help them make the like page in memory of her. I have a family member that is incarcerated at this time, and they're claiming that she hung herself. She had no sweater in her possession. She basically, what I'm being told is that it was a drug overdose. She was in her room, and they did the last check, whatever shift change was, 11 o'clock when they came in, they did the count. Apparently the officer seen her sitting on the floor in front of the toilet, with her arms on her knees with her head down. and never checked on her. And when the next shift in the morning came in, that's when they found her dead. So never bothered to check. I mean, like, how could she hang herself? They're basically trying to cover it up. There was no sweater.
I can tell you personally, I've been in a few different jails in Massachusetts. I've been in Ferguson, and that's pretty much it. But I can tell you right now, any jail cell that I have personally been in, you would be hard pressed to hang yourself. I don't care if they give you a rope. They're like, that's the way they're designed. Like, the bunk beds are just low enough so you can't hang yourself from them. You know what I mean? Like, the light fixtures are flush mounted to the walls, and the fire sprinkler systems are inset into the walls, so you can't even wrap anything around the sprinkler system. The lights are up in the corner where the wall meets the ceiling, and the screws are special screws, so you can't even unscrew those screws to get to the fixture behind the faceplate of the light. There's the doors. There are no hinges on the inside of the cell. The desk is everything is bolted to the floor. Even down to like Aaron Schwartz. I do not believe it is physically possible to hang yourself inside of a jail cell. I don't care what anybody says, I would love to see somebody try.
I did speak to her mother briefly. She wanted to know how I got the information I got. So I was honest with her. I told her, I said, it's a family member of mine who was incarcerated, and I make a joke. I call him Jailbird. That's basically his home away from home. He knows all the guards. He knows everybody in there. So if he's telling me this information, I know it's 100% correct. So now her mother has information that pertains to what they're saying isn't true.
Well, and then they were saying that they saw her on video eating something that they think could have been ingesting drugs while she was handcuffed, which seems kind of odd that she would be able to reach her mouth.
In the back of his car, yes, I seen the video.
So that, to me, they were setting it up that she had just ingested something that she shouldn't have ingested. So maybe we can combine the actions for the two of them. We also have Dream Reed, who was killed by Brahim Day. He had his hands up clearly. It's all in video. We know that for a fact. And he had been shot and killed. And so maybe we can go ahead and combine the three, because all of those lives matter, and it really wasn't fair that I just don't understand why people aren't being held accountable. I mean, we have to start thinking about this, is that any actions that the police do, if we were to do them and we would be in jail for it, they should be too. I couldn't just say, I'm afraid for my life and shoot you, John, as you're running away from me.
Right.
I cannot get away with that.
There's one more thing I'd like to point out as far as like the Mike Brown and basically a lot of these other people that are being killed by the police. I don't care if Mike Brown did steal those fucking cigarettes from that store.
He wouldn't have gotten the death penalty.
I don't care what he did when he or even Eric, like, you know what I mean? Like, let's talk, like Mike Brown, even if he did steal the friggin' pack of cigarillos, he shouldn't have been executed in the street. Eric Garner, the dude selling, Eric Garner was killed for 2 cents.
And for not
he was
paying
killed
taxes,
for like even if it was like up to 20 cents sales tax per cigarette that he was. See, even if he was selling cigarettes on the street corner, he was executed. You know what I mean? John Crawford, and then you get into John Crawford, dude was just standing in a Walmart with a BB gun. You know what I mean? Tamir Rice at the playground with a BB gun. You know what I mean? Like,
right. And the thing with Tamir
no matter
Rice,
what these people were doing at the time that they were murdered by the police, they were either surrendering or they were not being threatening. Or whatever. Even look at the 53-year-old veteran that was running through the park, and you know what I mean? Like, come on.
Well,
I don't care if that guy stole that car. I don't care if it wasn't his car. He had a broken taillight. He could have robbed the store. I don't care what he did. He was running away from the police officer, and the cop just shot him like 6-7 times in the back, and then planted a taser on his body.
I want to say something about Tamir Rice. Is Tamir Rice had gone through his mom's drawer to find an old cell phone because he knew somebody at the park that knew how to make them work. And the kid said, "Well, I'm gonna have to take it somewhere." And he said, "Okay, let me keep your toy while you do that." So it wasn't even, and the media gets it all wrong. It wasn't even his airsoft gun. It was somebody else's, and the tip hadn't been taken off by him. It was 2 years old, belonged to another kid, and they had taken the tip off. It might have fallen off because it was 2 years old. So we have to start.
Even if that was a real gun, it took that police officer 0.792 seconds to open fire on Tamir Rice. They didn't give him a warning. They didn't give him nothing. The cop got out of the car and shot him twice.
Yeah,
and then they proceeded to slam his older sister to the ground, handcuff her, and put her in the back seat of the cruiser right next to where Tamir Rice, 12-year-old kid, was dying on the ground right next to her. She had to watch her younger brother die right next to the car.
And the mom had to choose whether to be with her daughter or be with her son. I mean, they're just totally insensitive. But in my opinion, that was a drive-by shooting.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Plain and simple. That was a drive-by. And, that it just can't be acceptable. And for people to come out and be like he was a thug. No, he was a human being and he was 12. And we have to take that into account. We're running low on time. I'm going to go ahead and head out with the song Worldwide Message. The whole world needs to just chill. And I want all three of you to, join me again sometimes. We can, talk about more stuff that's going on. And Becky, keep everybody informed on the Justice for Phillip White protests and things like that. And John, you keep us informed on, upcoming the Truth Fest and Million Mask March and all of those other things. And Mr. Sharaud, you keep us keeping in 100.
I want to thank you guys. I think we all are doing a good job, and we need to keep it united.
Absolutely, because united is 1, divided by 0.
Right.
Yep.
All right, you guys have a good one.
You too.
Right, you too.
In what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation.
Lord, give me good vision so I can seek the truth. Speak through me and my music so I don't mislead your youth. And when I make an impact in this world, it's because of you. Amen. Now let me give my brothers the news. Put the guns down. Think about your life or your shoe. You quick to bust cause you too afraid of what fighting to do. And either way, neither one is the right one to do. So instead of fighting, let's open up the fist to salute.
Sean P, just fall back. And if you're back against the wall, no, you can crawl back. I done been through all that. The violence, now I'm riding dressed in all black. It ain't worth it. I swear to God, it ain't worth it. Know your purpose, cause life is life, it sure ain't perfect, no.
No shooting, no dying, no wars, no violence. The whole world needs to just chill. Show love, no hating. Notice the problems and we change it. The whole world needs Lake City Fresh. What's going on? So much ignorance among us. The youth killing each other. The government don't want us. We need to get back to lending a helping hand instead of shooting out. Just talk it out with your fellow man. The news got you so gone, promoting sickness and wars. Got you shook up, not knowing which way to go. I'm telling you right now, just believe in yourself. That higher power is who needs you the most.
Times hectic, I'm understanding the deep depression. The misconception with adolescents, they have aggression. They need direction, a lesson to help out with progression. Maybe a message instead of messing with violent weapons. I'm for expressing, helping to deal with stressing. Some love and affection, they'll show a little attention. View a parent, be present. Read with your kids and build. In the world, a kill or be killed. What time for us to just chill?
No shooting, no dying, no wars, no violence. The whole world needs to just chill. Show love, no hating. Notice the problems and we change it. The whole world needs to just chill.
News reporters providing stories of horror. Bullets are close to home and the shooter is at the corner. I got so much in my mind, consider me a hoarder. Bodies dropping all over my city and across the border. We screaming out RIP as soon as we awake from sleep. Standing over a casket, wishing that was a dream. Violence is not the answer every time that we contest it. Whenever our life is going, there are more lives affected. For real.
Yeah, the whole world need to chill. It feel like the whole world's on the pill. We even got little girls getting killed. Young boys pack the cells in the jails, that's for smartest. Yeah. No shooting, no dying, no wars, no violence. The whole world needs to just chill. Show love, no hating. Notice the problems and we change it.
D-Russ.
Shock joy, let's get it. Needs to just chill.
Moment of silence as we watch the sirens. Everybody on go, so who gon' stop the violence?
We need balance. All the young down here wildin', cops racial profiling, killing like a global challenge.
The more pile, more caskets at the cemetery. Seen him last week, now he's facing that obituary.
Ruggs is getting scary, cause he could've been a visionary until he got rocked, now he getting carried.
We need more unity in the community. Instead of worrying about what you little gon' do to me.
What happened to the leaders like MLK and Huey P, Malcolm X, Louis Farrakhan, and even you and me?
Illuminati accusations heard, usually they running from the principles of life. Truancy.
I can't let televised lies influence me. I advise anybody with eyes open to wide to see. Chill. No shooting, no dying, no wars, no violence. The whole world needs to just chill. Show love, no hating. Notice the problems and we change it. The whole world needs to just chill.
America has given the Negro people a bad check. A check which has come back marked insufficient funds.